Welcome back. You're watching CNBC-TV18's Power Talk. We're in conversation with NASSCOM's Debjani Ghosh. Something that does capture most mind space when we talk about Indian IT is the issue of the H1B visa. What are you currently seeing in terms of rejection rates, in terms of the time taken for scrutiny? Is that going up significantly? Yeah. I mean, how big a challenge is this today for Indian IT, in the current context?
Yeah. It's an irritant, because the scrutiny is definitely going up. It's becoming a much more cumbersome process, so it's definitely an irritant. But Shireen, I want to put forward some facts which most people are not aware of, right? Of the 65,000 H1B visas that are given out every year, the Indian companies take less than 12%. To be exact, in 2017, they took 8,468 visas, right? Majority of the visas are going to non-Indian companies, and this is unfortunately a big myth that exists, that all H1B goes to Indian companies, right? Now, there are two things about this. If you look at the top takers of H1Bs, these are all the top US tech giants, and they're also the companies that are spending the most on R&D. And what does it tell you? It tells you the importance of talent. It tells you that the US does have a talent deficit. There is the latest figure is around 2.5 to 3 million more jobs than people. I'm talking about IT, IT and technology jobs than skilled people. It also tells you that India has a talent surplus, and that's a huge strength in today's world, right? So when it comes to the IT companies, if you look at the visa intake in 2015 and you look at 2017, it went down 43%, and it went down by choice. It's because we are changing business models
and hiring more locally.
We are hiring more locally because, as I said earlier, the new world is about co-creation. The old world was about writing a code and scaling it, right? Which gave us the cost efficiencies. The deals, if you look at today's deals, by the way, we talk about growth in spend. You look at the growth in the deal value, 128% up year over year. It's huge. And why? Because it's increasing in complexity. It's end-to-end platforms, right? And to do that, you have to be near your customers, right? Yeah. So, and the wonderful thing about technology is that push comes to shove, it'll allow you to work from wherever you are. In today's world,
need a visa.
In today's world of digital twins and God knows what, you can work from. You can still service the customer from where you are. But the nature of work is changing. So no, it's not a worry. It's an irritant at best, but it is not a worry. The rhetoric is surprising, because when you look at the facts, the rhetoric makes no sense. So we hope at some point the facts will stand out and speak for itself.
Well, I want to talk to you about the landscape and for the lack, again, of classification, the domestic Indian IT companies versus the global players, as well as the in-house captive centers that have been set up. What are you seeing there? Because they seem to be growing at a faster clip than the domestic IT companies.
It's a great story, right? What we're seeing there is India today is becoming pretty much the preferred location for global captives. And it's being driven by access to talent and access to ecosystem. Now, we cannot take that for granted. We have to continue to strengthen both tremendously, especially the startup ecosystem, and I will talk a bit about that. We have roughly 1,200 odd captives, if I'm not wrong, in India already. Just last year, 40 got added. Okay. The interesting thing there, the numbers are great, but the interesting thing is not the numbers. The interesting thing is the work they're doing. So while it started off with resource centers and just back-end support, today you look at it, they're playing a role in market expansion strategies. They're innovation centers. So you see also, as the captives grow, you see a growth in design centers, innovation centers, centers of excellence, which is a fascinating story, and a fascinating story for us because it helps us build build a much stronger ecosystem in country.
So since you're talking about the tech startup ecosystem, I mean, there was a lot of hope and optimism and confidence around the launch of Startup India. While things have picked up, and that's largely on account of this ecosystem mobilizing itself, there has been a degree of disappointment, whether it's with tax-related issues, approvals, so on and so forth. What are you witnessing there, and what is the need of the hour?
Need of the hour, India has to figure out an exit strategy for startups. That's the need of the hour. We really don't have one. It's amazing how difficult it is if you start a business and you figure out, okay, I'm on the wrong track. I mean, you know this as well as I do. It's so incredibly difficult to wrap it up and quickly move on to something new with a badge of honor. That, okay, I've failed and I've learned. And it's just unheard of, and it's still unheard of. That has to change. I honestly think it's not about funding. Market access is improving, has to improve faster. But if we have to grow a robust startup ecosystem, we have to accept that failure is going to be a huge integral part of this ecosystem. We have to let companies exit without penalizing them and without, I mean, it's like a mental trauma to say I failed. That has to stop.
Well, speaking of mindset changes, Debjani, I also want to talk to you about the role of women, specifically in the Indian IT sector and in general as well, because, we saw the maternity bill being cleared, and there was difference of opinion even then on whether this would actually help women or it would hold back the cause of women further. At least the latest data sets seem to suggest that it's actually worked against addition of women in the workforce. What do you believe has to be tweaked there to ensure that it actually works for women, not against them?
I don't know if it's the bill that needs tweaking or the mindset of the employers
this
needs.
is clearly, I mean, because now this is legislation.
No, I know.
It's holding, especially hiring as far as
so
the
again,
smaller companies are concerned.
when you look at the data, and I know there's a new research study. I haven't looked at that, neither have I. But when I look at the data that we are aware of, there are layers. And we have to look at those, right? So what you see is that the bigger companies does not have a problem. In fact, most of them were already moving towards it. And what they have realized is during the life cycle of a woman employee, there are two vulnerable phases. One is when you get married, and the other one is when you have a kid. So if the company can support a woman through these two phases, then your retention rate goes up tremendously. Women stay back, and when women stay back, they're tremendously loyal. They're much more loyal, and that's a fact. And they do have an impact on profitability. They do have an impact on innovation, right? So I think the bigger companies have figured that out, and they've figured out that the cost of that maternity benefit or leave is well worth it. I think where you see the problem is the smaller companies, and that's where I honestly think it has to be about education. It has to be about looking at the total cost of having an employee stay with you and contribute to you, and we can't apply the short-term lens here, right? So I honestly think we shouldn't rush into changing the bill, but we have to look at maybe a phased approach or something which gets people to realize the benefit of not losing that employee. Today's problem is we feel, okay, if she goes, we'll hire somebody else. And there's a huge cost there. And we have to make employers understand that.
So I'll end then by asking you, Debjani, as I said, FY19, the outlook that NASSCOM has put out is better compared to the previous year. The key priorities now, or the key challenges that you're going to be working on?
Three key priorities. First, talent development. We want to accelerate the pace of talent development in India. One of our flagship initiatives, NASSCOM Future Skills. We're working with both industry and government to train around 2 million IT workforce and 2 million students to be workforce, building the pipeline in the next 4 to 5 years. So this is a critical one for us. And this is training them for the future jobs, not just on the technologies, but training them for the future jobs, right? So that's one. Second, accelerating the pace of innovation and the innovation mindset in India. As I said, innovation is going to be about partnerships. Innovation is going to be about co-creation. So as NASSCOM, what can we do to enable the best partnerships to take place? Industry, academia, startups. What do we have to do to get all of them together to collaborate, to co-create, so that we are able to solve the industry as well as India's problems in a way that we've not been able to till now. So that's a huge focus for us. The third area of focus is really about working with government and industry to drive the adoption of new technologies, which will create newer opportunities for the industry. Both in India and internationally. We work with METI to create new opportunities in Japan, in China, Nordics, and the response is pretty overwhelming. And we are looking at what we can do in India with the government. There's a new AI strategy that NITI Aayog has come out with. It's actually an excellent framework that has been created. So we'll be working with METI, NITI, and everyone else to figure out how do we move from strategy to execution, but that's going to be critical.
Well, Debjani, thanks very much for joining us. Here's wishing you the very best of luck, and look forward to chatting with you soon. Thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18.
Thank you, Shireen. Always a pleasure.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up CNBC-TV18's Power Talk. From all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.